Oh, we're live. We'll let some people roll in. Anybody that's clicking on now, we'll let people click on. We'll start chatting here in a few minutes, talking Auburn, Arkansas. Hey, get any questions in. I'll answer as many questions as I can over the next hour. We'll just toss some ball. We'll give it a few minutes to for everybody to populate in here. Got a great crowd in here. It's crowded. I know it's a little. It might look a little dark. It's not dark in here. It's just the camera. I'm in the front, so there's a lot of light, but it's a great crowd. You can probably hear some of it in the background. They're rolling in here. They're rolling. If you're around town and you ever want to pop in, by the way, when we do these shows, come on in, man. I'll buy you a drink afterwards. Session Cocktail, downtown Auburn, Pocket Watch. That's where we are, right there on Magnolia Avenue, right across the street from Hamilton's and 1716. Session Cocktails in downtown Auburn. It's right next to Taco Mama. It's a sweet spot to have a drink, kind of get you a booth, get you a bar seat, hang out. It's a great spot. We'll get going here in just a second. By the way, quick shout out to Session. So if you've never been, people aren't standing around. So if you don't have a place to sit, like when they get busy, you don't get in. So it's not a place where you're wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder, all that good stuff. But they do happy hour from 4 to 7 during the week. So come check them out. They have amazing old fashions, legit old fashions. Probably the best one in Auburn. They've also started opening on Sundays, 12 to 5 on Sundays. They do a post brunch is like a perfect way to come after a game. If you're in town, come have a post brunch drink. After hopefully Auburn beats Arkansas, we'll see. It's a great place to watch the game. There's 5 TVs, great sound system, plenty of space. Everybody in here's got a view. So come down here when you get a chance, and especially tomorrow. Like come in here at like noon. I don't know what time they open, but come in here, have a drink. Come in here afterwards, have a drink. It's a great spot. Session, man. They're great partners in the show. Gold Rush is your go-to drink. Yeah, Gold Rush is good stuff, man. Gold Rush is good stuff. Although they've gotten into another drink they have here that I don't even know what's all in it. I need to get the recipe. Next week, I'm going to shout out like a couple of my favorite drinks. I need to get the exact ingredients for what they are. Oh, man, Dylan, what's up, Dylan Seltzer? What player on offense or defense do you think will step up in this game? Man. Well, Hank's an easy choice. Let's not say Hank. Who do I think will step up? Boy, that's a tough one, man. I kind of lean somebody like Keandre Lambert-Smith at receiver just because of his experience. I feel like first SEC conference game, we don't know what to expect from the freshman. Like if Cam Coleman plays, he's coming off a little bit being banged up. I don't know what to expect from some of those receivers. Keandre's kind of the guy who's been in big games and these conference plays different. So like I would lean him. I feel like he'll be somebody Hank can lean on, and Hank may lean on him purposely. Defensively, gotta go somebody on the edge. Maybe Keldrick Falk or Jalen McLeod or somebody, just because of how athletic Taylor Green is. Those two guys, and Keyron Crawford too, are going to be so important to making sure he can't just free. He's going to get out of the pocket at times, but at least make it difficult. Make him have to run out, backwards and around to try to get out of the pocket. Don't just let him kind of leave the pocket super easy. Try to make it difficult and maybe at least make him go back a little bit before he can go up. I don't know, kind of lean Keldrick Falk or Jalen McLeod, somebody like that to try to contain him, put a little pressure on him. But he's a good runner, but he's not like he's made a bunch of mistakes passing the ball. I think that's where maybe Auburn, you've got a guy that's not accurate who's turned the ball over, and it's a dicey deal where you want to pressure him, but you don't want to pressure him so much that you leave a bunch of running lanes for him to just run free. But you want to make him make decisions. He's not that good of a quarterback. So I don't know. You want to contain him, try to make him make some throws, and hope he's not super accurate back there, I think. Can we see Jeremiah Cobb get involved more so like he could flirt with portal? Well, yeah. I mean, in this day and age, it's so funny. Like, you're exactly right. You have to think about everything. And it's perfectly fine to legitimately have that conversation about if guys don't have playing time, would they go to the portal? And that's part of the game now. I don't know. He's probably not thinking of the portal about the portal 3 games in. He had his opportunities last year to go in the portal, that's for sure. I would like to think he gets involved, but we say that about offensively. I think Auburn has weapons, right? And through 3 games, you've had 2 games in a row now where Malcolm doesn't really get involved. Like you feel like he should. And Jeremiah's a weapon. Damari Alston finally got involved a little bit. So with Hugh Freeze, it's interesting. I think he's so focused on being balanced, and he's so focused on taking what the defense gives that I don't think he's always focused on getting the ball to specifically a playmaker. If that makes sense. I think he's thinking about down and distance. He's thinking about what the defense is doing, and then he calls a play, and whoever it is got to make a play. And I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But there's times where you got to focus on what you do best, even if maybe that's not what you call based on the defense. I'm not saying you run into an 8-man front, but there's times where you got to figure out to me, hey, I got a playmaker, and there's a few times where I'm going to get them the ball, period, in the story. They're going to touch the ball 5 times a game, whatever it is. Todd's kind of one of those guys that a couple times a game to get the ball. Now, the Cal game, Cobb had his chance on that speed sweep and overran the hole and ends up going for no gain. Like he had his chance. If he was patient and was not going full speed, if he would have come around there with some vision, he'd have cut it up and he could have scored. So like he had his opportunity there. Just got to make the most of it, man. Got to make the most of it. Ooh, favorite Auburn Arkansas memory. Man, that's a good one. I can tell you one that's sort of a bad memory. Everybody remembers Fred Talley, the Fred Talley days, 2002. But maybe you know what a game that stuck out for me, Auburn Arkansas game years ago that really stuck out to me that I still remember was 2003 when Auburn was not playing well. Auburn was hyped up that year, and offensively they just couldn't ever get it going. But they started to get it going middle of the season that year, and they went to Fayetteville. Arkansas was ranked 10th in the country, or top 10. Matt Jones, Darren McFadden, that crazy good running game. And Auburn went in there and won like 10-3 and just shut down the running game of Arkansas, forced some turnovers. That defense was still good. Carlos Dansby and Richard Swarbrick and all those guys. That game I always remember because their defense played unbelievable against an offense that was so dangerous. And it was one of those games where every possession you're kind of holding your breath with Arkansas they could just make a lot of plays. And that game stands out. The 2016 game stands out where Arkansas came in there as a top 25 team here. First play of the game for Auburn, Eli Stone touchdown, and Auburn beat them like 56-3. Beat a ranked Arkansas team 56-3. I mean, one of the more impressive wins over a ranked opponent I've ever seen in my life. Those two kind of stand out. We finally see the edge rush that we've been expecting to come through this week. Yeah, this is an interesting. I posted on the board about Keyron Crawford specifically and how he's rushed the passer 35 times this year, and he's dropped back in coverage like 26 times. And I was like, should those numbers be so close together where, should he be dropping back almost as many times as he's rushing? That seemed a little bit off. I kind of think some of it was game plan. I mean, you had 2 athletic quarterbacks. And so the question is, did DJ Durkin just feel more comfortable trying to contain? Okay, I don't think he wanted to give up the play, so there was some busted coverages. That wasn't designed. But was he okay forcing them to, scramble a little bit? Like when you blitz, you better get there. Against an athletic quarterback, if you come after them and you don't, and they slip through, and you're playing like man on the backside, you're in trouble. So I kind of wonder if he was trying to play conservative, figuring, look, this team they're not going to score enough. What I don't want to do is give up big plays and have our offense playing from behind, that kind of situation. This could be different. Arkansas is a really dangerous team. And so, they may score regardless of what you do. And so I think the question is, does he feel good about playing a containment type defense? and then Arkansas scores anyway. I think this is a game you got to start to get aggressive, and you got to trust your defense to make some plays. Because simply sitting back and letting that quarterback find time, move around, or they're running the football, I think they have to take more chances in this game defensively. And so, especially the first half, we talked about that on the website on auburnlive.com. The first half and second half productions are crazy different. I mean, it's literally they're cutting their production in half in the second half. Yards, points, first downs, the third down conversions, everything is cut in half from first half to second half. So specifically, the defense has got to play better early in the game. Not to play great the whole game, play a little bit better early. Just don't come out and get blitzed early. I understand teams come out with scripted plays. That's always tough, but they can't come out here and give up 250 yards of offense in the first half and 17 points to Arkansas. I mean, they might be losing at halftime. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game regardless. So I think because of that, the defense might take some chances, knowing, hey, this is going to be a back-and-forth game potentially. We can't just sit back and play that game. Kevin asked about Cam Coleman. I don't know. He was listed as questionable on the Thursday night availability report. I don't know. Now we saw him Tuesday. I think a lot of it's going to be Cam's decision and the coaches. Like, where is he at range of motion wise? And if he's 80%, is he a liability? That's the question. Is his ability to go over top with his arm, if it's limited in any way, then I think he quickly could become a liability. Because then you're either not throwing him the ball and you're tossing him out there as a decoy, which you could do, or you put him out there and you throw him the ball and he quite can't get his arm where it needs to get, or maybe he drops a pass, or whatever it might be, or he can't get off press coverage. Like, there's some issues that if his shoulder's not there, he becomes maybe more of a liability than that. So to me, he needs to be 100%. I thought Camden Brown played well last week. He's got options. DeAndre Lambert-Smith, Robert Lewis is dependable. Like, you've got some options, but obviously Cam is a special guy. So I bet he dresses and plays. I bet we'll know early. I bet you'll know in the first series or two, like, his condition. Watch him, see if they go to him quickly. Watch how he moves that right shoulder. And I think you'll be able to tell pretty quickly if he's pretty healthy. Of course, he could get hit on it again. But I think you'll be able to tell pretty quickly, like, how healthy he is. What matchup do you think will be the most important this weekend? Man, I really think it could come down to, I would say two. I mean, really, to me, this is all in the trenches. Auburn's got to stop the run, and they got to get the run going. And it goes the same way for Arkansas. I think whoever rushes the ball better wins this game. Arkansas comes in with the leading rusher in the league, Jaquindon Jackson, averaging 132 yards a game. He's a hand. And if they can run the ball, and you toss in Taylor Green's ability to run, it's an issue. It's gonna be a problem. They're going to put points on the board. And not only that, if they're able to run the ball, they're keeping Auburn's offense off the field, and Auburn's offense isn't good enough. Auburn needs as many possessions as they can get. They need as much time as they can get. A lot of times, because they've been turning the ball over and making mistakes and stuff like that. So, and on the flip side, same thing. You have a redshirt freshman quarterback, second start. You got to run the ball. You got to sustain that, and you got to really get that going. You saw a little bit of that in the last three quarters against New Mexico, but this is a different deal. Arkansas's defensive line's good, pretty good. Got some good players. So I think it's all about who can establish the run and take the pressure off of the quarterback. Hank Brown because he's young. Taylor Green because he's athletic. He's not super accurate. He can make mistakes. He would love if Arkansas can run the ball. They would love to do that and not put the ball in Taylor Green's hands in terms of making a ton of decisions. And Auburn, the same thing. But I think it totally comes down to the trenches. If I had to go one side, I would say Auburn's stopping Arkansas's run. If Auburn can stop Arkansas's run, I think they got a chance to make some plays. Then you put the ball into Taylor Green's hands, who has got like 3 fumbles and a couple of interceptions this year. He's dicey. But to make sure the ball is in his, if he comes out and beats you and plays clean, so be it. But you want the ball in his hands, and maybe you force him to make mistakes. So to me, if I had to pick one, it's Auburn's front stopping Arkansas's run. I think that I think that would go a long, long way in trying to help Auburn win this football game. Over under Malcolm Simmons touches 5.5. Oh boy. Well, now Hugh Freeze has kind of backed himself into a corner on this one. So he came out Monday and said, I need a Malcolm package. Malcolm deserves to be on the field. Malcolm's good enough to be on the field. So you've kind of said it now publicly. But if we come out on Saturday, Malcolm gets 2 touches and plays 10 snaps, there's going to be some questions that need to be answered because it wasn't fans clamoring for Malcolm. You specifically recognized Malcolm and what he brought to the table and said he needs touches, and then you didn't do it. So and when you do that, when you say he needs touches, it means no matter what. It means no matter what Arkansas defense is doing, there's a time and a place that he's getting the ball. So 5.5. Oh boy, I kind of lean under. I kind of believe it when I see it. Now, Hugh Freeze could mean exactly what he says, right? He could come out on Saturday and Malcolm could get, 5 catches and he could get 3 reverses and who knows. But I kind of will believe it when I see it because I've heard this stuff over the years where coaches come out and say, I need to get that guy the ball. Last year we did this with Jeremiah Cobb. Jeremiah Cobb had a good first game or two. He had a kind of a breakout game where he had a couple of touchdowns. And we heard about how fast he is and how dynamic he is and how he brings a different element to the table. And then he would just disappear for games at a time. And of course, he can't do anything if his play's not called, the ball's not given to him. So it's just one of those deals where I'll believe it when I see it. So I would lean under strictly because I'll believe it when I see it. 5 would be a good number, 4 or 5, but I don't know if I'd go 6 or more. Why in the world do we continue to use that 3-man rush? Yeah, I don't know. Again, that's a good question. And again, it goes back to me wondering if it's that old adage that when you blitz, somebody's band is going to play, either yours or theirs. And I just wonder if Durkin said, look, we're good enough to beat these guys without blitzing. They may make some plays if we contain a little bit, that he may get out of that. We may give him a little bit too much time, whether it's Dampier or Mendoza. And maybe that guy scrambles a little bit and makes a play, but Durkin's thinking, I don't want to give up big stuff, cheap, easy stuff. And I feel like we're good enough to win. Now, of course, they lost against Cal, but all in all, the defense didn't play poorly in that game. First half was not great, couldn't get off the field. But second half, you give up the 1 touchdown. And I think 2 of Cal's touchdowns were off of turnovers. So, and then last week, bad first half, dominant second half, you still only give up 19 points to an offense that has some ability. So they need to play better, but they haven't played terrible. And so, yeah, I kind of just feel like it's a scheme thing where he just thought he could play a little bit conservatively and contain. I think Saturday's different. I think when you play a team that's got a dynamic quarterback, a dynamic running back, an offensive coordinator, the caliber of Bobby Petrino, I don't think you want to get conservative. I don't think you want to count on, well, let's just play it safe. Let's not give up anything big. I think Arkansas is going to make plays regardless. And so I think you need to be a little bit more aggressive. Try to force a turnover. Help your offense out a little bit. It'd be nice. I mean, Auburn right now is almost dead last in turnover margin. They've only forced 2. They've given up 9. And so while the offense is struggling, at some point on defense, it'd be nice to force a little bit more of the issue and help your offense out, whether it's forcing a turnover or whether it's being aggressive and getting 3 and outs. I mean, that's the other thing about it. When you play back a little bit, it's more of a bend, don't break. And so maybe you give up a couple first downs. Auburn's offense needs good field position. So I think there's times too where defensively, maybe depending on time and situation in the game, where you're aggressive. Like, we need a 3 and out now because I can get our team the ball at the 40. I think there's going to be times where they try to be aggressive to try to help the offense out in that capacity. So I do think you'll see a little bit different defensive scheme. But then, look, we'll see. If Taylor Green starts breaking stuff and it doesn't work, you have to adjust. I think it's going to be an interesting chess match between Petrino and Durkin. Who will be the starting 5 on the O-line? Well, Xavier Miller is still listed as questionable. So let's assume he doesn't start. I think it'll be the same 4 as last week, but I think insert in Braden Joyner for St. Johnson at left guard, because I think both those guys played a bunch last week. They kind of were like every few possessions they were shifting. But I think Braden played well, did some good things. So I would say from left to right, Percy, Braden Joyner, Connor Lou, Jeremiah Wright, Dylan Wade. If Xavion starts, then you switch it, and I think you're back to Percy, Dylan, Connor, Jeremiah, Xavion. But look, that line did some good things late in the game against New Mexico. If Xavion's not 100%, then I think just simply inserting Braden, putting Dylan over, I think that might be a good recipe. I mean, maybe let's see if that group can build a little chemistry. I think it'll be more interesting in this game is if they don't rotate. In other words, whoever they start, is that the group? Because every game so far, we're seeing rotations of tackle and guard, like as the series go on to get these guys a playing time. And I kind of wrote on AuburnLive.com this week, that's been great, but at some point you kind of got to get to your 5 or 7, and that's it. And so, Xavion Miller, maybe he gets in there. If he were healthy, Xavion and Tyler Johnson, and maybe that's kind of it. So I'm interested to see if Miller's not 100%. I think start the same guys he did last week. Insert Braden Joyner and roll. I mean, I think that group did some good things. Gun to head. Nobody puts a hypothetical gun to my head. You know, saying that gun to head. Do we go for a big fish in the pool next year? He says 2025 should be the year. Are we talking quarterback? I mean, I don't know if we're talking about a quarterback or not. Quarterback, yeah. Ooh, that is such a loaded question. That depends on a ton. Let's assume Auburn gets Deuce Knight. You got Deuce, Hank, Walker in the spring. Holden might transfer. I mean, I think Holden wanted to graduate from Auburn. I think that was probably why he stayed once he graduates. So if you got Walker, Hank, and Deuce, there is literally no way to know that. Like my gut, well, okay. If going to the head, I would say no right now, only because one, he has already shown that he wants to be a believer in his quarterback. He wanted to be a believer in Peyton, and he wants to be a believer in Hank. And so that would be one reason I would say no. We don't know how Hank's going to play the rest of the year. If Hank plays well, doesn't even have to necessarily like get better every week. But if he just plays well and shows flashes, then there will be a lot of reason to not bring a quarterback and say, I love where Hank's at. Walker is going to get better. Deuce is my guy that's learning. We're fine. But we don't know how Hank's going to play. And then, of course, you've got the dynamic of just how Hugh Freeze, one, views the NIL, two, how he views NIL quarterbacks specifically. He does not like the NIL game, and quarterback is sort of the epitome of that because the quarterbacks demand the most money and the most wants and needs. And so, man, that turns them off big time. And so far, going and getting a big fish at quarterback, it's not what he wants to do. And so, I would say if you ask me this very moment, I would say no. Now, obviously, if Hank doesn't play well, it changes everything. Even if they get Deuce Knight, if Hank just sort of doesn't click like you, I mean, if Hank doesn't click, and maybe one game you got to go back to Peyton, then I think that changes things. Depends on who's out there. So there's just so much. That portal quarterback situation is so fluid. But I will say the one thing that would change about that question is you're entering year 3. And so the one dynamic that changes about that is entering year 3, how Hugh Freeze views the quarterback position, specifically how he views going after a portal quarterback. There's going to be, if he thinks he needs one, the urgency and the pressure he's going to feel is going to be ramped up even more than what he felt previously, because now you're going, okay, year 3, like, get one. If you think you need one, go get one. We're not doing this again. So I think that would be the dynamic that would change, that could shift how he views it, and how he thinks it, whether that's boost or pressure, going, hey, we're not playing this game again. If you think you need one, get one. Not even if you know you need one. If you think you need one, let's go get one. I think that would be the sort of dynamic shift that would be interesting. It would be different from everywhere else. Quick shout out to everybody watching Session Cocktail. Come down here, Magnolia Avenue. They're popping. They're busy. They're busy in the background. Great old fashions, great gold rush. Happy hour 4 to 7. Come check them out. It's an awesome spot. Awesome spot. Appreciate them being sponsored. So Corey asked at what point Scott is pulled from being punter. Dude, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I think we saw some frustration from Hugh on Monday that, hey, this has got to change. Like, it's getting to the point where I'm frustrated. Because Keontae, I tweeted or posted, whatever, on Saturday that Keontae's a roller coaster as a punter. Because when he does catch the ball, he's as dynamic as a punt returner as I've seen at Auburn. I mean, I'm not trying to exaggerate. That's not my game. In terms of like what he's capable of and making people miss in a box, and just kind of the limited number of punt returns in his career at Auburn. I mean, he's got Robert. People may not remember this, but he's got Robert Baker-like ability when he catches a punt. And so you want him to be out there because he absolutely can catch a punt and take it 30 yards or 50 yards or to the house. He's so good. He's fearless. But what I talked about after the game on Sunday on AuburnLive.com was what's the greater impact on this particular Auburn team? What's the greater impact? A Keontae Scott 30-yard return or a fumbled punt? What will impact things more, given the struggles on offense, given some inconsistencies on defense, just where this team's at? A turnover, specifically a turnover that could be on your side of the field, is more impactful than you returning at 30 yards. So if you're weighing those two, you're going, I'll take 0 return yards versus a 30-yard return in the game, but also a turnover. I'll just take nothing. Now, if Auburn was really dynamic on offense, it was really good on defense, then give me the punt return. I'll say, we can make our defense is good enough that if he does fumble it, we'll hold him to a field goal. But man, if he's got a chance to break it, maybe you take that. But I don't like the impact that the fumbling's having. So I think Freeze is getting frustrated about it. He definitely hinted that Malcolm Simmons could be an option. Maybe do those count as touches? Somebody asked earlier, over under on touches. I don't know if that counts. It shouldn't. It shouldn't count. I guess Malcolm would be the guy. We've seen Keandre Lambert-Smith in practice catch punts. That'd be a good option, but he's so valuable. But he's, I think, a guy you could rely on. And then Perry's an interesting guy that we've seen back there that can make people miss, but he's a true freshman. And I don't know if we need to be tossing Perry back there right now. I'd go Keandre or Malcolm. But I think we'll see early in this game. I'll say this way: the next Keontae Scott Muff punt, if it's in the next 2 games, let's say 2 to 3, Keontae needs about 3 clean games, and then maybe you go, okay. If he has another one in the next 2 to 3 games, I think there's a high likelihood they make a switch, especially Saturday. If he does it against Saturday, I think he will go, okay, somebody else needs to get out there. Dylan asked, do we see some of our young athletic linebackers this game to help cover ground and combat Taylor Green? I don't know. I mean, Eugene and Austin, I think, are really good linebackers that can go side down the sidelines. My OC has been good. I don't know that I love him, but I feel like he's made some plays and been reliable. We'll find out more in this game, kind of what his athletic ability is. I don't know. I mean, Jamarcus Riddick, I could see getting out there a few snaps, but it's pretty much going to be up to Eugene and Austin for the most part. And then you'll have Jalen McLeod or Keyron Crawford at times that are along the line of scrimmage that could act as an outside linebacker if they don't pass rush, things like that. I think it's going to be more on them to contain Taylor Green, and at least make it difficult. Take good angles. So, like, if he does go to leave the pocket, don't let him. Like Mendoza felt like he just left the pocket so easily. At least be ready that when he does roll, you immediately go down the line, and he can't just get right outside the pocket. So at least they can kind of take a wide angle or something. But I think Asante and Keys are going to be big, not just in the run game, but trying to contain Taylor Green to some degree, even if Taylor's coming back up the middle, right? Especially if he's coming back between the tackles and trying to slither through there and make runs. But I don't know so far. Let's see how many snaps that Marcus Riddick has played this year, real quick, while you ask that question. Let's see, DeMarcus Riddick, how many snaps has he played this year? He's only played 11. So DeMarcus Riddick's only played 11 snaps this year. So it's hard to think that all of a sudden in the SEC, you're going to toss him out there and he's going to play 20. I mean, unless somebody gets injured. So I feel like it'll pretty much be Eugene and Asante. If things go south fast with Hank, do you leave him or you put in Holden Gertz? Well, I'm going to tell you, if things go south fast, they'll go back to Peyton. I mean, they'll go back to Peyton. There's no question. I mean, Hugh Freeze has talked about Peyton them still believing in Peyton Thorne as a quarterback. So if things go south at all, whether it's first quarter or whether it's you give Hank a half and it's just nothing's happening, I think they'd go back to Peyton. I don't think Holden's just not the guy. If you go to Holden, that would make no sense to me. Peyton knows the offense. He's got athletic ability. He's just got to work on his decision making. It's Hank's shown it. But if they come out and Hank's it's just overwhelming and he's not playing well, and you feel like, man, that was a really bad half of offense, and Arkansas is up 21-3 or something, it would be Peyton. I think Peyton would get inserted back into the game before Peyton. Now, what's interesting is, yes, I know late in the last game, we went in, but at that point, there's no point. The game's over. You don't put Peyton in to run the last two series of the game where you're at 45-19 against New Mexico. You put Holden in there. If Arkansas jumps out 21-3 and Hank is playing terrible, and you maybe give it till halftime, what's up, man? Then you go to Peyton. That's right. And by the way, I'd be fascinated to see what would happen with Peyton if he got another chance. Because I think Peyton's better when he just sort of plays with a little tempo and maybe a little urgency. I think it'd be interesting to see if that happened. What kind of Peyton you get? You might get a really good Peyton. You might get a Peyton that doesn't overthink things and comes in with a little bit less stress of being the starter. Who knows? And we don't want you want Hank to play well. You want everybody to play well. But I think it'd be interesting. I actually think Peyton could come off the bench and play really well. He asked, what's Charles Kelly's role this year? And what would you say his biggest impact is? Well, I mean, look, Charles Kelly was brought in to recruit. That's number one. He's a phenomenal recruiter. I mean, he's primarily coaching the safeties. And so, he's back there. So if you look at Jaron Thompson's played well. If you look at Caleb Harris, played well. Sylvester Smith played pretty well. Look, the safeties have been pretty good. Wesley McGriff is more responsible for the quarterbacks. And that's where you've had some issues because youth, right? Jay Crawford and Sam Anthony and Jason Hart, not a ton of experience there. But the safeties have done, now there were some busted covers against New Mexico where Hugh Freeze talked about safeties coming out of position. But for the most part, they played pretty well after Jaron, especially Jaron and Caleb and Sylvester. But Kelly was brought in to recruit, you know? I mean, the DB should be able to, you got to teach those guys the basics on turning your head. Now, what's interesting is, Humphreys talked about this. I don't want to bring up bad memories, okay? But 4th and 31, what we heard after that game was Hugh said, look, if we would have just turned our head. So we're now like, we're in the next season and we still hear the phrase, just turn your head and make a play. So I don't love hearing the same thing with the DBs about turning your head. They have been in decent coverage. Like, you go back to the Cal game, even in Mexico some, I thought the secondary has been in good position a bunch of times. But like you said, they're not turning their head. They're there to make a play, and they don't. There's definitely been some busted coverages, but there's also been some times where they've had pretty good coverage. But you got to make a play. Get your hand on the ball. So, but Keller's brought in to recruit. He's got long ties to, obviously, the SEC, but being an Auburn guy where he started his career as a GA, he is extremely close with some boosters at Auburn, and they very much wanted to bring him back in the fold. He was almost part of the staff initially when Hugh Freeze was hired as the defensive coordinator. Hugh Freeze went with Ron Roberts, and they couldn't make it work. And so I think that now when Roberts, it's time to make him, I think some people got involved and said, listen, we want Kelly back. He could recruit. He's a great fit. So you bring him back. You give him the KDC title. You obviously hired Jerkins. But you bring Kelly back. You give him a title. He's a great recruiter and all that good stuff. And knows the SEC and they've learned this. So I think he's got definitely got a role as an impactful coach from a recruiting standpoint. And that's a big deal, obviously. We'll go for a little bit longer. If y'all are down here, if anybody's in town, come on down. Session Cocktail, downtown Auburn, Magnolia Avenue. Come check them out. Their cocktails for calls right now is for the Auburn Raptors travel basketball team. So they have these cool cocktails for a call. So come in here and check that out. They do it every month. And so the calls will change. So check them out. This week it's called a drop shot. Cocktail made with vodka, Capoletti. I don't know how to pronounce that. Man. Sounds good. But you got Corey outside of quarterback. What's the most disappointing position group? Feel like secondary, but curious about other groups. Oh boy. Yeah, secondary. Do you mean secondary? Everybody? Do you mean safeties, corners? I would lean corners because of Deontay. Man's been okay. Kite's sort of been up and down. I would kind of lean corners if I went one. I'll tell you a group that's a little bit harder to judge, but I haven't loved is the tight ends. That's a really experienced group. Luke Deal and Frazier and Rivaldo. That's played a ton of football. Even Micah has been in the program. Better game last week. Micah caught a touchdown. Rivaldo actually played well. But the first few games, seen a number of missed blocks from a bunch of different guys. And so before last game, I might have leaned tight ends. I feel like that group should be so solid, catching the ball, running the right route, blocking. And I've seen multiple mistakes from them in the first few games. Like I said, New Mexico's better because you have Rivaldo played a little better. Mike O'Reilly caught a touchdown. Of course, now you're without Brandon Frazier with a broken foot, so that's a bummer. So that group, I'd love to see a little bit more out of that group, especially blocking on the perimeter and protection. That group should be like doing their job every single time. There shouldn't be a lot of mental errors there. But after that, I'd maybe lean corner. But the secondary is that group that I mentioned early in the season. Can you withstand some of their mistakes and still win? You lost against Cal, not necessarily because of the DBs, right? There were offensive issues there. But can you let these DBs grow and still win? Big test Saturday. Like we'll figure out Saturday. They're going to be tested it out. Hopefully they can. I think it's going to be fascinating. I mean, I'm just telling you guys, Saturday's a dangerous game. I don't love it. I don't love the matchup. I think Arkansas is better than what people are giving them credit for. Most people look at them as a 13th team in the league. I don't know, man. I think they're pretty dangerous. We'll see. Oklahoma State. Like, what do we know about Oklahoma State? Pretty good team. But then Arkansas struggles against UAB, and Pine Bluff is terrible. I just think Arkansas is pretty good. I think we'll find out a lot. And here's the other thing. Arkansas is coming here. It's a huge game for them, too. It's their first game in league play. So, I mean, they're going to come in here plenty motivated. And look, we've seen lately, Jordan-Hare Stadium, I mean, look, it's a great venue. I'm not going to say it. But lately, a lot of teams have come in here and won. Kind of comes down to talent a lot of times, right? And then the stadium could be the differentiating factor. When you're just not playing well, there's only so much the fans can do. So they're going to come in here pretty focused. Auburn needs a good start in this game. We should say Auburn needs a good start to this game. They need to be up 7-0, 10-0. And if they do that, you got the crowd the rest of the game. The crowd's in it, you're good to go. You come out and you're down 10-0, or you come out and throw a kick in the first quarter, you set the stage for the crowd to be like, oh boy. So Auburn desperately needs a good first quarter, like really bad. Is the Brandon Frazier injury being undersold with how much he approach the blocking? Well, it's a good question. I mean, he's out. He's a really good player. I mean, look, Luke Deal's a physical player and should be able to block. But Rivaldo, that's not his strong suit. So you're talking about those packages and those sets where Deal and Frazier would be the blockers. Well, now you don't have Frazier. So are you asking more of Rivaldo? Are you asking more of Michael Riley to go in and block? So I think it's possible. But I think you got to feel good about Luke Deal as a blocker. But I think it just puts a little bit more on Michael Riley being a blocker. And Rivaldo too. If he's got to step up his game and be a better blocker as well. So I don't know. It's gonna be a good one. If you're watching, I want score predictions. Exactly. Put them up on the screen. Tell me a score and just like a quick reason why you think it's going to happen that way. I think I said 31-24. I noted in the game notes in the piece that we put up on Thursday night that gives our predictions. 14 of the last 15 games in this series, the winning team has scored 30 or more points. This has not been a game necessarily with a lot of defense. There's been some games where one team has played defense. More often that's been Auburn. Not every team. But most of the games recently in this series have been high-scoring affairs, where even the losing team is getting to 20-plus points. I feel like that's what we're going to see again on Saturday. And it feels like I think the numbers would put it pretty much like 30-27. I pretty much put it right at the over-under and right on the spread. I think I predicted 31-24. I don't know. It's hard for me to say Auburn's offense can go out and put 38. I mean, I guess they could if they get some help, but I think we're going to see some points. I could even see this game starting fast and slowing down. I could see this being a hot first quarter, maybe even a hot half, where like at halftime it's 20-14 or 20-17, and there's action, and then the second half slowing down a little bit and some adjustments being made. I can absolutely see that happening as well. Both teams come out with a lot to prove, and that first half is pumping, and then teams adjust. Fatigue sets in a little bit. The second half becomes more about who can put together that one drive if you're winning and not turn the ball over. I can absolutely see that happen. Of course, as I say, 27-20 for Auburn, and that's being a little bit hopeful. Brain scares me after New Mexico. I agree with you. I think the defensive scheming is going to be interesting to see how DJ Durkin handles that. In the Durkin Bobby Petrino angle is interesting. Those two guys win against each other in practice, every day for a year at Texas A&M. Hugh Freeze said he felt that actually gave the advantage to Petrino coming in because he thinks that Durkin hasn't really changed, whereas Petrino, depending on your personnel, depending on your quarterback, you have to adjust your scheme. And so he thinks that maybe favors Petrino. It's possible. I don't know. In situations like that, I always lean defense in terms of if all things are being equal. think it's just harder to execute on offense. I mean, defensively, you could just play base defense. If the offense can't execute, you don't have to do anything technically. So offense just got to execute. You just got to be in the right position. So that's going to be a really interesting chess match. Look, it's a huge game. I wrote yesterday. I don't normally like to say must-win games because you can't predict the future. But this is as close to a must-win as it can possibly be for Auburn. They lose this game. You're 2-2. You've lost twice at home already. There's nothing at this point. If they lost to Arkansas, there would be nothing that would make you feel comfortable at all in saying that they would beat Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, or Texas A&M. Forget just one of them, any of them. There's no reason you would predict. Would they? Yeah, I guess. But there's no reason to think they'd beat any of them, let alone beat enough of those four. And I say those four because Georgia and Alabama are just going to be tough. They are. They're on the road. You don't have the rosters they do yet. Those are just going to be tough. So if you lose Cal and Arkansas, beginning of the season, I thought you had to win 2 of Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, or A&M. You had to win 2 of those, and then beat Cal, beat Arkansas, win 2 of those, and you can get to 8-4. Well, if you lose to Cal and Arkansas, 8 wins against you'd have to sweep those 4 games, 2 on the road. That's not happening. Because you lose to Cal and Arkansas, there's nothing about that team that says that they're gonna. I mean, that team you maybe predicted to win 1 of those, and so you're staring at 6 wins if you lose Saturday. Staring at it. And that might even be generous, because then you're looking at Vanderbilt and La Monroe. That gets you to 4. Okay, beat let's just say Oklahoma or A&M. One of them you can pop up and you beat one of those. You're still only at 5. You'd have to beat Oklahoma and A&M at home to get to 6. Then you'd have to try to beat Kentucky on the road to get to 7. Now you're talking about winning 3 of the 4 toss-up games down the stretch when you've lost the only 2 competitive games you've played. So, it is just, if Auburn loses Saturday, 6 wins becomes not just, if they lose Saturday, I think you'd reset the over-under for wins at this team at 5.5. That would be the new number. 38-21 Auburn. Auburn's defense will be ready. Arkansas defense will be without a couple of starters, and I believe Smith and some other receivers have a great day. And that's a fair point. Arkansas is going to be without at least 1 starting DB. They had one. The first 2 were listed as out on Wednesday's injury report. Then we get Thursday's report, and only 1 was listed as out, and 1 guy went from out to probable. So I don't know, pretty quick recovery, but yeah, they're without at least 1 DB. And look, if Auburn will not turn the ball over and can find some running game, they will score. They'll go 30 plus. They will. I feel good about that. So don't turn the ball over. Find a little running game, and they should get to 31. Holding Arkansas to 21 would be based on what we've seen from Arkansas's offense. That'd be pretty good. That'd be really good. Now, we'll know more data as we go, and maybe as the season goes, Arkansas is not quite as explosive. Maybe they racked it up against Pine Bluff, and they racked it up against UAB. And Oklahoma's defense is terrible too. Even in Oklahoma State's other 2 games they played, they've given up about 400 yards. I mean, they're not great. So we do go into Saturday with a little bit of unknown. It's possible Arkansas's stats are a little inflated. It's possible on offense. We'll find out. But Petrino's, he's a good coordinator, and that quarterback is athletic, so it's still dangerous. But it's possible that you look at their 600 yards of offense a game and leading running back in the league, that could be inflated a tad bit. We'll see. We'll know more as we go. But holding them to 21, given how confident that group is right now, would be really impressive. Because the other thing that worries me is the third down. Auburn's given up in the first half of the last 2 games. Zach points out a bit inflated. Pine Bluff is the same conference as Alabama A&M. And they're terrible. Yeah, Alabama is terrible. So Arkansas Pine Bluff horrendous. And so really you have to figure out, what do you think Oklahoma State is? The same way if you think about Auburn, what is Cal? Like, what if Cal is a 9-win team? Do you look at Auburn differently? Now, it doesn't excuse what we saw in offense, but it might have tagged it. Like, maybe you go, okay, Auburn played poorly, but what if Cal's a 9-win team? It might change a little bit. So if you think Oklahoma State is really good, then you're going to think Arkansas is really good. If you think Oklahoma State's overrated, then maybe it changes your opinion on Arkansas a little bit. But we don't know that stuff until the games go on. But it could be interesting. You know, I can see it a world where Auburn comes out, does a few things differently defensively, plays well. Arkansas is not quite the juggernaut on offense that maybe the stats show. And Auburn wins 34-20. I could see that. Wouldn't be what I'd go with. Obviously, I predicted 31-24. I think it's going to be going into the fourth quarter. I think it could be anybody's game. But I could see a world where Auburn plays well and wins this thing. But it's been a while since Auburn's gone out there and played. I mean, Arkansas last year, but they pretty much packed it in at this point. Mississippi State last year, Auburn, that was kind of the game that Auburn sort of started to play well. But it's a big game. It's a huge, huge game for Auburn and Hugh Freeze. Last few minutes of Auburn Live Happy Hour here at Session Cocktail, Magnolia Avenue. Come down and check us out. They're popping in here. Happy Hour drinks from 4 to 7. You come check them out. Come out here after the game tomorrow. Perfect. Go to the game. Pop over here, have a drink before dinner if you're staying around in town. And go check them out. Awesome, awesome place. We're going to get the owner on, I think, next week. I'm going to try to get him on next week, talk about this place, give some suggestions for drinks while you're here. And I'll even toss out some of my favorites as well. Zach, put in the chat what your prediction is. I don't know if I'm curious to what you think, how you think it was. We all thought Jeffrey Cole and we were all pretty much in the same ballpark. I think I said 31-24. Cole said, Jeffrey said 30-27, and Cole maybe said 27-24. Like, we were all kind of right there in that ballpark of pushing 30. In Auburn winning by about possession. Zach says 24-20 Auburn. That'd be pretty under. It's about a total of 44. And I think the over-under as of yesterday was 56. So that would be surprising. I generally watch a ton of other people's opinions and stuff. I don't know. I cover the team. I kind of have my own perspective. I don't really need to listen to a million different voices on it. But I've seen a few comments that the over seems to be real popular, which makes sense. I mean, that probably makes sense. Arkansas's offense, no defense has been dominant. It probably makes sense. But 24-20 would be a little surprising if it's that low scoring. That feels like there'd be a mistake here. Like, I don't know if I don't know that I think the defenses are so good that it would be 24-20 and we go, wow, the defense has just shut it down. I feel like if it's a game in the 20s or 24-20, something like that, I feel like it's a game we would look at and go, turnovers, mistakes happened, missed opportunities, that kind of thing. This will be a good one. Auburn's won 9 of the last 11 games of the series, pretty much dominated lately. And as I said, 14 of the last 15 games, the winner's going over 30 points. So 30 is kind of the number in this series to get to. All right. I hope everybody comes out to the game. If not, go to auburnlive.com. Be on our message board during the game, after the game. It's pretty wild, pretty lively discussion, but we enjoy it. So go to auburnlive.com. We'll have a bunch of football coverage. We'll have a bunch of recruiting coverage too, right? Deuce Knight in town, Caleb Cunningham in town. So another big weekend for recruiting as well. Appreciate everybody joining us. We'll get out of here. We'll have a drink. We'll enjoy your Friday night. We'll see you guys next week at auburnlive.com.